Believe me alone. Cheater pointed to his watch. I said it's nearly 8:35. No, you said 85, which is the number that I was thinking of. Really? Look, I can prove anything. We can set up some tests, okay? I've read about all kinds of tests for psychic abilities. Some of the tests use those cards with different patterns on them. I figured that I could do the same thing with a regular deck. If Cheater could tell what card I was looking at, then that would prove that he could read minds. And if Flinch could tell and if Flinch could tell what the next card was before I turned it over, that would prove that he could see the future. And for Torchy, all he had to do was set the deck on fire. I'm sure someone has cards. Let me find cards, and I'll show you. Well, maybe tomorrow, Cheater said as he walked towards the door. Yeah, I'm out of here, Flinch said. He started to follow Cheater. Then he jumped back. At that instant, Cheater yanked at the door real hard. It flew open, and the knob slipped from his hand. If Flinch hadn't jumped, he'd have gotten hit. See? I shouted, pointing at Flinch. Flinch glanced back at me. See what? Nothing happened. Forget about him, Martin. It's not even funny. I watched them leave and then plunked down on my bed. It's true, I said to Torchy. Every single word I said is true. I looked it up. It's in the books. I couldn't understand why Cheater had gotten so angry. It didn't make any sense at all. Maybe Flinch was angry about the milk. Okay, I could see that. But still, the stuff that I was trying to tell him was way more important than a pair of wet pants. Torchy sighed. It would be nice if you were right. He said I really didn't start those fires. Honest. I know. I told him that's what I've been trying to explain. But everyone acted like I was out of my mind. Don't you see? This means you didn't do anything bad. At least, not on purpose. You and Flinch and Cheater aren't like the other kids at Edgeview. You don't belong here. You're innocent. If I could convince Torchy, I figured I could get him to help me with the others. But Torchy glared at me. So the only person who believes me is a crazy kid. And he thinks I'm some kind of a freak who can start fires with my mind. Wonderful. Maybe I can get a job in a circus. He dropped down in his chair and picked up a magazine. But I didn't know what else I could say to convince him. For a moment, I sat on the edge of my bed and watched Torchy as he read. Period. As he read, I could have sworn that I saw a small wisp of smoke rise from the front cover of the magazine where he held it. Maybe it was my imagination. I sniffed the air. There seemed to be a faint burnt odor, but our room always smelled like that. I kept watching, but there was no more smoke. Why didn't he believe me? It was so obvious. I thought about all the time that I'd spent in the library. Couldn't they see I was trying to help them out? I'd even missed lunch for them. The least they could do was think about what I said. And Torchy, who claimed to be my friend, he had let me down the worst. All he had to do was start one stinking little fire while the others were watching, and they'd know that I was right. One lousy, stinking little fire. That wasn't a lot to ask, but he hadn't done it. I looked at him, sitting there with his stupid magazine, moving his lips as he read. It was amazing. He was actually stumbling through life, totally unaware of his abilities. I got off the bed and walked over to him. There had to be some way to make him understand. When I opened my mouth, the wrong thing came out. If you were smart, you'd believe me, I told him, but I guess you're not very bright. Face it, you're probably even not smart enough to be called stupid. You'd need another 10 or 20 IQ points to reach that level. Torchy threw down his magazine. He looked like he wanted to stand up and take a swing at me. I almost hoped he would, but he just said, I'm as smart as I need to be. He stared at me as if he was daring me to say another word. I kept my mouth shut. Torchy picked up his magazine and went back to reading. I crossed the floor. I flopped on my bed and turned towards the wall. The silence in our room grew heavier with every passing minute, broken only by the rustle of each page that Torchy turned. The crinkle of the paper reminded me of the crackle of fire. I knew I'd been wrong to say those things to him. Wrong and rotten. Just thinking about it made me guilty. I took a deep breath and then I told him, I'm sorry.
I'm scared.
You're scared? Come stand with me, sweetheart. That's okay. He still sounded hurt. I knew it wasn't really okay. He didn't say anything else, and I didn't know what to say to him. Damn, what was wrong with me? I couldn't even fit in with the freaks and the misfits. After Torchy and the others had let me into their group so quickly, I figured things might be okay here. It was my own fault. I'd been stupid enough to believe I'd make friends. I sat on the bed and looked around. Torchy was just a few feet from me, and dozens of other kids were right down the hall. There were kids everywhere, but I'd managed to end up alone. Way to go, Martin. From the moment I'd gotten to Edgeview, Torchy had been friendly. Now, he didn't even want to look at me. I stood up and let my eyes wander around the room. The wall above my head was bare and empty. There was hardly any sign that someone besides Torchy had lived in this space during the last 3 weeks. I'm going out, I said. He didn't answer. I left the room and walked down the hall, looking at the doors, lining both sides of the corridor and knowing that I had no place to go. No one wanted to see me. Nobody cared. It almost felt like being at home. Okay, and this is a conversation in the car coming back to Edgeview between Lucky and Mr. Calabrese. Okay, so we know that Lucky's last name is Calabrese. You can add that to your character chart. Lucky, mind if I turn on the radio? Mr. Calabrese, as long as it isn't that modern stuff. Oldies? Sure. Hey, that new kid I told you about last month, remember? No. You know, the one that's in Torchy's room? Right. I think he might be okay. I wasn't sure at first, but he seems like an okay guy. I'd trust him on my side if things got tough. If things get tough, leave the room. Besides, if he's okay, what's he doing at Edgeview? What about me? I'm there. I know.